Welcome to the Say Network podcast. I'm Jim Sparks. I'm here with Megan Villalpando.
Hey guys.
Am I saying that very close to right?
Yeah.
I've been practicing. Abraham Guevara.
That's good.
Is that close
enough?
That
was good. Yeah.
That one's still hard for me.
No, you're good.
Thank you. Today's guest is Kevin Larsson. I did say that one correctly. From the California South Division. There he's the Divisional Music Director and has been doing the job for close to 20 years?
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah, 20 years. 2001. That is actually when I started that. But I was working in the music department just before that.
Right. Man, it just seems like 1995 when we worked at camp together.
I know, it's crazy.
Oh, it was 1995. That's a long time ago now.
That's a long time, yeah.
Yeah. Kevin also plays in the Western Territorial Staff Band, and his music has been featured on numerous recordings, including the International Staff Band. That's recorded some of your stuff.
Yeah, very exciting. Yeah.
Is that kind of weird?
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. Yeah, especially the first, few tracks that got recorded. It was just, it was incredible. And it still is. It's always good to hear people play the music. But for me growing up, the ISB, that was kind of the group,
Right.
And now that, I know all these guys and they play the music, it's kind of surreal, really.
That's pretty cool. The ISB has not recorded anything of any of ours yet, right?
Well, they haven't heard that Christmas CD that you put out.
That's probably for good reason.
Okay.
These people haven't heard it. Although I will say that one of my Christmas songs on that CD is featured every year on the Skit Guys podcast. And Tommy says it's their family tradition to listen to that album when they decorate the tree.
Incredible.
I just thought it was a humble beginning.
That's right.
Took a turn somewhere. I was shocked when he told me that, but he said that is their family tradition, and Christmas shoes is their favorite. So
It's a classic.
Anyway, youth culture. Before we get into this episode, we want to take a minute, talk about youth culture resource, and Abraham is our man today.
This isn't a resource, but this is kind of resourceful. So I just read in Rolling Stones that Kanye West delays his new album called Jesus is King. That's the name of Kanye. I want that to sink in.
Yeah. Well, he has been doing church services.
That's what I want to talk about.
Okay.
I find it really fascinating. I was on the way driving here, and I was listening to the service, and he did a surprise visit at a church in Atlanta. So look out, guys. He may be coming to your core just by surprise. He might stop by. But
St. Gabriel Corps is my guess.
There you go. But it's he's been going around doing these services, and he bought property out in Wyoming as well. And people just flock out there, and they'll do they called it Sunday service. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I think this is very relevant to youth ministry, because this guy he's essentially he's now the evangelist. Whether we like it or not. This guy is evangelizing to people, and yeah, what gets me, his next album is called Jesus is King, which is essentially it's a Christian album, it's a gospel album, and I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on Kanye West going Christian? What are your guys' thoughts on people doing this sort of thing?
You're saying Kanye West going Christian as if it's like a trend.
Okay. I say it because it feels like it sometimes, but I feel like maybe I'm being cynical and I should stop being that way, But for lack of a better way of saying it, what do you guys think about that sort of thing? Like, about these artists, sort of, like Justin Bieber and those guys, even that are really embracing, Christian music. I always get into. I'm a part of a lot of worship leader groups, and I get a lot of comments where people are like, guys, we need to stop imitating the world. We need to stop copying, and we just need it. I'm like, the world's imitating Christians right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we kind of lose sight of how much of an influence we have, the Salvation Army, even of all the Salvation Army appears internationally. The brass bands appear at big events, right? What are some of the big events that the brass band has played, like international events, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, even in kind of movies and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
they're
right.
always looking for the Salvation Army band. That's kind of an iconic thing. And then we look at the Rose Parade, of course. That's probably the biggest, what we call the open air that we ever do kind of thing. And it's all about the brass band being shown. And then it's kind of synonymous with the Salvation Army, for sure.
And I think it's really awesome because and it's weird because I'm equating it with Kanye West embracing gospel music. But when I was listening to one of his performances, he was doing a Kirk Franklin song. He was doing like if you guys know.
So he wasn't singing.
No, he wasn't singing. He was off. Actually, it was just like that. He was off kind of to the side, and he was doing the Kirk Franklin thing, which is the thing I recommend to worship leaders who are brand new. I tell them just Kirk Franklin and just repeat the first phrase or the next phrase, But yeah, he was doing that, and he was doing songs from other like Marvin Sapp and like these other amazing gospel artists. He was doing their songs and doing their music, and I don't know, like, what are you guys' thoughts on sort of like that sort of thing happening? I don't know what to call it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, wouldn't that be the hope?
Yeah.
Ultimately, I mean, I haven't heard it. I read that he was doing these things, but I haven't heard the service or anything like that. And you would hope that it's genuine, and you would hope that he did have a transformation in his life.
Yeah.
But that is the hope.
I think the same for me. Yeah, if it's genuine, and then more power to him.
Yeah.
I think he's got such a platform, and he's got such a connection with people that maybe other evangelists or Christians can't reach. He definitely has like a very unique platform. I mean, he puts out an album, and he's instantly like selling thousands, hundreds of thousands of copies of it. So yeah, I think it's. Is it genuine?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to mention, about being genuine as well, because he's going to have so many young listeners listening to him. And then on the other end, if all of a sudden he kind of falls away from that faith and stuff, and then, the young people will see that as well.
Right.
On the way here, I was listening to this study on First Peter, and it kind of talks about exactly what's happened to Kanye West.
Mm-hmm.
It's, they used to, be as in the world, and then these Christians all of a sudden kind of removed themselves from that. And it was kind of an issue with these, at least the people that Peter was kind of aiming for, is they were getting upset with these Christians now, so we're not good enough for you anymore, kind of thing. And there's all that kind of stuff. And Peter's main point is that you need to be able to stick up for what your faith, you need to be able to argue, for what your faith is. And, that would be kind of one of the concerns that I would have if Kanye West is at that point in his life right now.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's what I agree. I always hesitate, and then I feel guilty for hesitating.
Yeah,
right?
That was my dilemma earlier.
Yeah, it's like I hesitate. I'm like, oh, geez, right? But then this is what you want.
Yeah, totally.
And so I just hope that this is real, and this is a new way of life, because the impact could be significant.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I also feel the need to bring this up too is because as youth leaders, the kids, where they're coming from, they're going to be exposed to this already. Maybe as members, as current people in your youth group, or as new kids walking in, they're like, yeah, I know about Jesus. I know about Jesus. I know about this, and this is my exposure to it. This is going to be a lot of people's first exposure to Jesus. An album called Jesus is King. This is going to be a lot of people's first time hearing about Jesus. And whether we like it or not, this is just how it's going to be. And so I think maybe this is something to be not paranoid about, but maybe a little bit alert about as youth leaders, that Christ, a version of Christ, is getting into popular culture, and just know it and be familiar with it, and
I think we saw this with Chance the Rapper as well. He just came out with a new album recently, and it is very like kind of Bible focused and like kind of Christian, not kind of, it is. And yeah, I think it could be open up with youth leaders specifically and kids. It could open up a lot of opportunities to have conversation about, knowing what you believe. And then that way, when you're listening to that, you can tell, is this Christian, or is this biblical, or is this kind of whack, or you know what I mean? You can learn to distinguish that. I think that's an opportunity to teach kids to be able to distinguish what they believe.
Right. He's given us, I would just say one blessing in this is that we have common ground, that he's kind of given us that like foothold to begin the conversation about it. As when, like before, when I was growing up, I'd have to like ask you, hey, you know about Carmen? You know, and they're like, who's Carmen? Or who's DC Talk? You know, nobody knew what I was talking about.
Right.
At least now, like I have a place to maybe have something in common, you know, with, you know, whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to watch and follow.
Awesome.
Be cool to hear kids singing along to that, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You know, as they're going home from school.
Yeah,
Amazing.
for sure. He just did the version I heard on Instagram. It was you know that song "Shout, Let It All Out."
Yeah.
They took the lyrics to that song, like William Booth would have done, and switched them to like Christian lyrics. And it's like a gospel version of that song, which is already really cool. Yeah, you guys, we'll link it in the thing. It's pretty good,
Yeah, cool.
pretty great.
Look how far we've come. We're linking Conway.
Kanye West.
Look at that. I'll try and do a brass band arrangement of his first song.
There you go.
Nice. Oh, dude, do it.
With the songsters rapping.
Yeah.
I don't think you're joking.
Dude, have you heard? Sorry, I keep. There's a song called "Power," which is heavy brass.
Right.
You got to check it out. It's pretty dope.
Oh, well.
Kanye?
Kanye West.
Oh, okay.
It's an older Kanye song, but it's like a really heavy, like brass, like, you know, there's trombones and other brass instruments that I don't know about.
I was going to say.
Can you name another one?
A trumpet.
Oh,
No, we don't
Flute.
use those. Oh, jeez. Abraham. You can't win them all.
You can't win them all.
Can't win them all. Kevin,
yes.
we would love. So you've written different types of music,
Yep.
right? From a musical,
Yep.
and
3 of those.
to brass band music to
Yep.
choral music.
Mm-hmm.
Have you done any like kids
Yep.
stuff?
Yeah, lots of kids singing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some fun stuff. So that's a wide range, and writing for choral is usually like in 4 parts, and then writing in band is how many parts?
Oh,
Like 8?
well,
10?
Well, kind of like
I know you
16
leave
parts or so, but
I
you
know
never
leave
really
out
think.
baritones and stuff.
Yeah,
Like that, but,
you never think in that many parts,
no.
really.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Like, what's the creative process before you start to compose a piece?
Well, even though some of the music we do is instrumental, like kind of brass bands, it's all about the lyrics. So that is the first thing. Really, as a Salvation Army composer, when it comes to, again, I'm going to mention the brass band, just kind of to make my point here, we're just arrangers, really. You know, we're the melodies that we use and all that kind of stuff are already in existence. So all we're doing is just trying to kind of arrange those, you know, that melody into something, you know, a little bit kind of bigger. So the first thing I ever do before I'm writing a piece of music is base it along with those words. So if it's a song, that's pretty easy because all you're doing is just kind of arranging that song. If it's a brass band, it's a little bit more, you know, challenging in some way. So the first thing I'll do is get stuck into those lyrics, just seeing what the lyrics are trying to say. Often if I'm using a more contemporary song, it's pretty clear what those words are trying to say. There might be 1 or 2 thoughts that the lyricist is really trying to convey. Sometimes if you're using some of the old hymns, it's a little bit more challenging. You might have 3 or 4 verses that, you know, are really talking about some pretty in-depth theological stuff.
Right.
And then all I'm trying to do is kind of mirroring the music that I'm writing to kind of help get those words across. You know, words, they can be this beautiful poetry. Just that alone is just a wonderful thing. But to me, if you add music to it, it just can be even more beautiful thing. So that's kind of my initial process. I might have moved off topic there a little bit, I think. But yeah, and then I'll kind of just sit down. If it's a song and someone has sent me the lyrics to do that song, one of the things I try and do is stay away from the piano. So I don't want to be kind of restricted by my own kind of piano abilities, really. Right. So it's, you know, I'm pretty comfortable playing in 2 or 3 keys, you know, but I don't do that. Sometimes I'll just find a key, then I'll move away from the piano and then just try and sing just the words, trying to figure out a melody, but staying away from the piano. It's quite funny, when I was doing the first musical, which was Spirit 2, there was a little studio down at THQ, and if anyone had come in and listened to what I was doing, it'd been quite embarrassing for me because I was just pretending I was on Broadway stage. Oh, yeah. So I'd get these words, play the key, and I was just belting it out. I was on stage. But it just really helped to try and get the feel of the song. And then once I got the melody written down, that's when I'd go to the piano, try and figure out the arrangement and go that way.
Interesting. How long does that process take? I mean,
It
I'm sure
changes.
it varies.
Yeah, absolutely. It varies. It's and what's quite funny, some of the songs in the musical, the ones that just come straight away really quick, they seem to be the ones that are maybe a bit more memorable, the ones that you just really get stuck into and try and be clever, trying to use all these different kind of chords and kind of modulations and going there. Musically very clever, take a long time. Are they really the ones that people remember the most? It's kind of a strange thing. My dad always talks about They Should Come From the East, which is one of his most famous songs. And he was, as I do, he was just trying to get a feel for the words, but he was playing along. And first time through, he was just adding an accompaniment. And then he said, right, now I've just got to try and figure out this tune. But he didn't realize that tune had already come to. So They Should Come From the East was just a one time through. He wrote it down, and that was it.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
How do you edit? Like, because you could, like you're saying, you could get too clever, and you're writing all this stuff, and then you're listening to it. Like, what's your editing process?
For me, I have to leave it some time. So it's I will get stuck into this stuff, and then spend a lot of time getting all the kind of developed stuff. But then for me, if I leave it a few days and then go back to it, I have a kind of a clearer picture of, I don't really need that to be in there at that point. It's just, I'm just cluttering everything up and then I can do the editing at that point.
Yeah. Have you heard like a song that you may have written a long time ago and you're just like, that part should be different. And you've gone back and changed it? Or once it's published, you just let it go and just, it's gone? Yeah.
Once it's published, it's kind of done. I'm at a point now, most of my music that has been, excuse me, most of the music that I've done recently that's been published I'm generally pretty happy with it. Mm-hmm. It's the earlier stuff, fortunately, that didn't get published. I look at that now and thinking, what was I thinking? And this is even stuff that, because I've got a degree in composition, even that stuff, I wouldn't even go near with it now. That I've kind of developed, my own style, if you were. So I wouldn't really change anything that I've done now. One of the weird ones that I did, and I don't know why I did this, and it's probably the most famous brass band piece that I've done, which is They Should Come From the East, again using that tune that I referenced really earlier. Yeah, it's challenging, I know, but a lot of people have used it. It's been recorded all over the world, really, which, I'm excited about. But for some reason, I missed out half a verse when I was arranging it. At the time, it must have been a good idea, but I don't know why I did that. So you can't use it for congregational singing because it's missed out half a verse.
Oh, that's interesting.
I know. And so I would think back on that and say, well, what was my thinking? And I don't really know. So then the previous general, Andre Cox, he requested me to add that extra half verse in so that he could use it for his retirement because he wanted to sing to it. So I did that. So now there's two versions floating around. The published one that's missed out the half verse, and now the full one
if only
you could actually now sing along to. So
like if you can do like what software people do, where they'll release a patch or like an update. So
that's true. I know, but it's too late. So
bug fix.
One band, a Chicago staff band, now recorded the full version of that. So it's out there, but the published, which all the other bands play, you can't sing to it.
That's interesting. Now, when you're composing multiple parts and stuff like that, where do you start when you have multiple parts? Like, even though the melody probably is the most obvious, but like, how do you choose and all that?
Yeah, well, even let's say I was doing orchestra stuff or brass band where we're looking at multiple parts. Really, when you break down those pieces, it's not that many parts. You might break it down to 5 or 6 parts. So I don't do this, but a lot of composition teachers will say always start in short score, which is basically you're just looking at 5 parts. You've written it out on basically 3 staves on a piano and one other stave. So then you can see the different lines that you're going in. And then once you've figured that bit out, then you expand it. But you're not really adding any lines. You might be harmonizing those lines, or you might be choosing those lines might be in the violin at this time, and then I'm going to continue that line in the woodwinds. So you're not really having, if an orchestra has 20 different parts, you don't have 20 different thoughts going on at once, otherwise that just wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
So there's not actually many more lines than kind of writing a 4-part harmony song.
Interesting.
Yeah, maybe it's just because this is what I've always done. I won't do that. I've tried it a couple of times and it doesn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it works for most others. So maybe I'm the minority and I shouldn't be doing it that way. But I will always start with a big score, and I still do it in lines. But as I'm writing it, I just don't pad out the score until that point.
Do you handwrite it, or are you just computer?
No, just computer. Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, just another question. The John Tesh wrote the opening to NBA's, like NBA, the National Basketball Association's theme song,
Mm-hmm.
and it was super popular. It was on NBC, and anyone who grew up in the 90s watching that knows that soundtrack.
Right.
And he tells the story that he was at a restaurant and he was just eating,
Mm-hmm.
and it came to him,
Right.
and he went to the payphone and called his house and sang it onto his phone so that he wouldn't forget it.
Right.
And that's how it came about.
It's incredible.
Have you ever had like kind of a weird moment where you're just like, gosh, man, that would be great together, and then you had to do something similar?
Yeah, it's again, when I'm kind of in that creative flow, things will come to me at kind of the oddest times. I actually never listen to music in the car. If I'm alone, I just don't do it, especially if I'm in the middle of writing stuff. And it's often during those times that a little tune will come, especially if I've been looking at some lyrics for a song and it's, hasn't quite got there. All of a sudden it might just hit me and I will sing it into my phone in the car. I'm sure I pull over and do that.
No, you don't.
Okay, yeah. But, it's those moments as well. I know Bruce Broughton, he's a very famous composer. He always carries around a little notebook with him, and if he has a little thought, he'll just quickly write it down so he doesn't forget it. One of the other side to that is if you forget it, maybe it wasn't that memorable in the first place.
Sure.
So there is that. But, it's happened a couple of times for me like that, and... yeah, I remember the story about the guy who wrote the same thing for Jeopardy. That's probably the simplest tune that you'll ever hear.
Yeah.
And it was the same type of thing. It just came to him straight away. And I read also that tune alone, he earned over $80 million from that little tune.
Wow.
I know. But I'm not in it for the money, of course. So
There's money.
Yeah, there's
But you're saying
It's
there's
out
an
there.
opportunity to write a very simple, well, as we know that simple is not always easy.
No.
But
There's 12 notes. That's it.
That's it?
There's 12 notes, That's what I think. So that's my argument whenever anyone says, you know what, that sounds like, there's only 12 notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me a break.
True.
Oh yeah, like
true.
with I heard it. Sorry, this is off topic, but it was Wicked.
Right.
Wicked didn't have like the rights to, I think, Wizard of Oz music, so they could only use like the first like 6 notes of like any melody from like the Wizard of Oz or something like that. So,
Yeah.
fun fact.
I had to put a reference again. I won't go back to this piece anymore, but they should come from these. It's got this African style, so I put a reference in there to what there was in the jungle. Da da dee da da dee 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 da. But I changed one of the notes in there so it could be published.
I see.
So it now goes da 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 dee 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 da. So one note allowed it to pass all the copyright rules.
That's crazy.
Is that for copyright rules?
Yeah.
Just
It is.
one note has to be changed.
Well, it is no longer the same melody.
Okay.
So I think they were just being overly cautious, the publishers. But everyone who plays it plays the actual.
It's
the actual song.
I don't know if you ever. Whenever you watch reality TV, they have like a soundtrack always in the back, and every now and then I'm like, that sounds like a Coldplay song,
Right.
but they'll like change just slightly different.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
So, I guess when I think of music, there's different kind of aspects of music. There's performing music or playing music. There's teaching music, and then writing music. Of those different areas, is there a particular one that you enjoy the most?
I really do like writing music. Actually, it's I just love the creative process. It's I would consider myself a creative person, and it's just something that just keeps the interest, and I just feel like I have to just be creative. And it could be in all sorts of things. It's not necessarily just about writing music, but I'm always just thinking of trying to do things differently in creative ways. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy being in front of a group. I don't consider myself the best teacher when it comes to kind of one-on-one teaching with, brass or piano. And I say this not to, in any kind of boastful way, but for me, playing a brass instrument came pretty easy. I never had any massive issues that I had to try and fix. I always find that the best teachers are the ones that have had those kind of issues. They've had to learn how to deal with those different issues, and so then they can kind of teach those, the trials that they had to go through to get to that. That never kind of really kind of happened to me. And again, I'm not trying to sound kind of arrogant, but it's just, it makes me not to be the best teacher that I could be at some of those instruments.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Have you always had a passion for music?
I've always enjoyed music, but certainly my studies when I was going through kind of high school, it's a little bit different in England. We do these, what you call GCSEs, which takes you about to 16. And then when you're 17 and 18, you go into what you do A-levels. And my A-levels were nothing really to do with music. I was aiming to be an architect. That was
really?
that was my big thing. Big passionate about that. And, so I did the whole physical science and kind of all these different things. But it just a recession had hit when I was about 18, and that was the area that people were all losing their jobs from and stuff. So I took a couple of years out, and at that point I decided to go into music. So I was 20. It was, quite late on, and then I did my degree. But then my composition never took off really until kind of mid-30s, really. So it was kind of a long time until kind of it all just made sense and started kind of kicking off in that way. Yeah.
Do you have, is there a person or something that inspires you to do music?
Lots of people have inspired me.
Besides Jesus.
I mean,
yes, exactly.
Of course.
Yes. I can pick out certain music leaders that has inspired me. I think even going back as, my first YP bandmaster, there was in fact, the first person who taught me music was someone from this territory, but it wasn't here. It was when I was in Chile. It was Ed Ringel. He's a retired officer here, no longer with us, but he taught me how to play cornet. He would be a big inspiration. I think of some of those the junior band leaders, especially in Chile, and then going back to Bromley, where I grew up, and it was just some of these, and they were quite young people. That was one of the things. Often you kind of think back as some of the kind of people that inspired you, and you think of these lofty people that, were great musicians and great people of God. But when you think back, they weren't really that much older than me, So right. You think of some of these, I don't know if that's the same kind of in the youth leaders, it can be a kind of a 14, 15-year-old that can have a real impact on some of these kind of young people. And that's what it was for me, with some of these, some of the young leaders. So they inspired me. And then when I came here, some of the great musicians that have been around in this territory, like Chris Mallett, Bill Gordon, Ivor Bazanko, people like that, musically has certainly inspired me. But yeah, it's great. And then I think of course, some of the big brass band people as well, that the works I love to listen to. And it's just, some great people out there.
I love that. It doesn't always have to be, the best musician, or you don't have to always be the best to be able to inspire somebody or to teach somebody something. Yeah,
that's right. Especially I was thinking about my songster leader when I was in Bromley, and he was, he kind of really, looked after me through some of my troubled youth, years and stuff like that. But when I think back, he was just in his early 20s,
wow.
Probably have just gone through those same things himself. And, but I only realized that recently. At the time, I just saw him as this great, man of God that has been through so much, but he was just this young early 20s guy.
I just saw this. So this isn't super music related, but I did see an interview the other day, a Martin Luther King interview, and it was on the BBC, and it was awesome. And then he's like, "Yeah, so and you're 32 now, and tell us what it's like." I'm like, 32? Like, oh my gosh, what have I done with my life? But it was awesome, though. Yeah,
like, and it's that young lady giving it all right now about global, climate change and stuff like that. It's fabulous. Yeah.
Cool. So you listen to a lot of musical recordings. What is it like listening to someone do your own music?
Yeah, it's amazing. It is. It's because whenever you write this stuff, you want it to be played. Of course, it's there's something, of course, about the creative process. You just, created to create. And if that's kind of your offering, and especially certainly if it's, Christian offering right there, that can be enough, it's your offering to God. But there's certainly, it's just a wonderful feeling when other people are using your music to inspire others as well. I mean, that's just is a great feeling. And the recordings are great, but kind of hearing it live, that just adds another whole new dimension to it. And it's, you feel you're helping people, and it's a good feeling. There's, and there might be some kind of human elements in that as well. There's, right. We talk about not having pride, but there is, obviously a sense of pride when you have that as well.
Yeah, I think those feelings make you want to do it more. I mean,
yeah, of course,
it feels great, to hear people.
Yeah. Like when I first started writing, when I got here, the music, my compositions didn't seem to be going anywhere, and I certainly did feel discouraged.
Yeah.
And I look back now, and it might not be my best material or anything, but then the first one that all of a sudden people started playing, there was this march that I wrote for Portsmouth. Now, this was a pure family thing. It was Dave Maddock, my father-in-law, asked me to write this. And so I did, and their band recorded it and stuff, but it didn't really go anywhere. And then all of a sudden the New York staff band used it as an opener, and other people started hearing, and then people started asking for more music. And it was really that piece that kicked it all off. But I'd written tons of pieces before that never really got anywhere and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Kind of like a viral video almost.
Yeah.
Like you do a bunch of stuff and then you catch one.
Yeah, so I'm now kind of in a point when I send any music now to the publishers, it gets put on a different pile of music than maybe up-and-coming people that haven't really had anything published. In London, I know they get over 1,000 band pieces that get sent in every year, but a lot of these are unpublished composers. And, there's only so many of them.
Right.
So many people looking at these pieces of music to try and edit them and stuff like that. So that's in a pile of, we'll get to these when we have time. And I'm fortunate now, and I'm in a position that I get mine in a different pile that they'll guaranteed to have a look at it. It might not be published, but it does mean now that I get more works published. Wow. It's an unfortunate situation for those up and coming guy, but you need to have that break. And that's the same with anything when it comes to the, creative arts. You need to get that break.
Right.
Yeah.
Does your father-in-law remind you of that by any chance?
I don't think I've ever told him about that. Let's just keep it between us. Otherwise, he will remind me all the time.
I know your father-in-law. He's not listening to this. Don't worry.
No, he's not. He's never heard of what a podcast is, actually.
It sounds like, as you're telling your story, it sounds like the early work that you were doing, you keep saying that maybe it wasn't good. But now, like you and stuff eventually gets better, It just sounds like you're taking the pressure off of being a prodigy and just like get better and just improve yourself,
Yeah, totally. And I guess it's a bit like something I referenced earlier about the, the music, being a music teacher. I don't feel I was that great because I didn't go through these issues. But I mean, as a composer, I did, I look at these things and it's, that was just a big mistake. Now, how do I fix that? And I had some people that would kind of sit me down and, I went to some composers forums and they were saying, the reason this didn't work is because you need to be thinking along these lines, and people helped me in that development. But I didn't give up. I mean, at some points I felt like I was going to give up. It wasn't great when, you're always just getting rejected. But, I built on those mistakes that I made and then I fixed them. And then now, I'm there to help others as well. So, people are often sending me their music that I can try and, go through. And I've been through some of those issues. So now I can help them to see, for them to see, I should say, some of the areas that they can improve.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it was very Malcolm Gladwell kind of. Revisionist. Yeah. No, so when you listen to people playing, going back on that, like when they're playing your music, do you ever find yourself being a little like critical or kind of like, that wasn't the way I wrote it, You ever feel like that? Yeah,
not so much when I hear the recordings, because really it's up to the interpretation of the bandmaster. So it's, especially it comes with speeds. Sometimes I feel, oh man, that's just so fast, but the musical director, he's wanting to portray something different, and that's fine. You put down the music on paper, and then that's the bandmaster's job, really, to interpret that. The time that I'm, sometimes just kind of shrink into my seat a little bit is when I'm playing in a band of the music that I've written, because what I'm hearing is either from, the trombone bench or the euphonium bench, is just all the instruments around me. And in my head, I'm picturing what the whole thing should be sounding like. It's different as a bandmaster because you're in the middle. But if I'm part of just the band or, kind of, the praise group or singing group, just singing with the people around me, then I think, no, that's not what I want it to sound like. And then it's only when you sit back in the hall and actually all the sounds blend together, you think, oh, yeah, at least that's what I was trying to aim for.
Yeah.
That's gotta be so surreal, I think, just to like be in the band and then, we're going to play your own piece. Like, that's got to be so surreal.
Yeah, and it was difficult at first. I'd always wanted to say, Bandmaster, I was really thinking, like this, but then it took me a while to realize that, he's hearing something different than I'm hearing. So then, it's just better for me just to stay quiet and just let the bandmaster do his job.
Yeah, you're getting a different mix.
Absolutely. That's what it is, yeah.
Yeah, and you're hearing, or you can tell if somebody's off. You're like, hey, man.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, you can't exactly sit in there and go, I need more cornets over my left.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not getting that.
Yeah, but it's difficult to grasp that at the first, when I first started doing this.
Sure.
Maybe you went through some of that too, right? I know you've written some songs for different groups and stuff, and they kind of take their own interpretation of it or put their own spin on it.
Yeah, I had that with Izzy, working with Israel, and he, it was funny, there was one song, he was asking me, hey, have you finished this song? And I'm like, no, I haven't finished it. And then he was recording it already. I'm like, I haven't finished that song. There's no bridge.
Right.
And they put it on the album just like that. And the whole time I'm just kind of like, there's no bridge. I wrote a bridge, but it was just kind of too late, But yeah, really a little bit.
It is challenging.
Yeah,
for sure.
So when you sit at a piano, what's the first song you play when you sit down at a piano?
I don't really have one. Often, actually, I was just trying to think about the amount of times that I really just go and sit down and the piano. It's rare these days because I'm so busy just to actually just sit down and play for pleasure, really. So, I go to Torrance Core, and our longtime piano player, unfortunately, can no longer go. She's struggling with her health. So it seems now that a lot of that has fallen on me. So often when I sit down at the piano, it's really kind of focused on what I'm going to be playing for the course. So, we have these themes. All the themes are laid out now for weeks ahead. So when I'm looking at that particular Sunday, I will try and put either like a medley together for the offertory or something like that, that will actually kind of go along with that theme. So really kind of that's what it is. I try and avoid using the tune book. I'll use a songbook to find kind of the words. But really when I'm playing these tunes, I kind of want to make my own kind of little arrangement out of them and stuff like that. So I kind of stay away from the tune book, which is the traditional settings of all these tunes. So that's what I do. I just sit down and just try and get, inspired. It might be little fragments of that melody that I'm just trying to kind of blend with something else, that kind of thing. Yeah, but it's a lovely experience when I do it. I do enjoy it, sitting down and just kind of being creative. And then I play it once and then that arrangement's done and then we just move on to another one. They'll never be written down anywhere or anything, which is fine,
Yeah. Do you ever, sorry, this isn't one of the questions, but have you ever felt like kind of burned out with music? You've been doing it a long time. Have you ever felt that like, I could take a break or you just can't get enough of it? Is it?
No, well, it's my job, even though it's the, the music director.
Yeah.
So much of it is just admin.
Yeah.
Now if I was, writing music the whole time, I think I would be burnt out. After these musicals, now some of them, I for sure wasn't spending my whole time at these, but really from start to finish, when it comes to even writing the book that these musicals are written on, that my brother often does, and then getting the words in, it's probably a year process. Then I definitely need to take a break out of those. I just have to sit back and then just do other things because it's just too much, especially when it comes to the recording process.
Yeah.
It's almost giving your ears a break. I've just spent so long with my headphones on and stuff. I just do need to take a couple of weeks away just to do things. And that's probably the reason that I don't really listen to music in the car as well. It's just, it just gets a bit too much. For a while, but because of all the admin, which I still actually quite enjoy, I do, love putting events together and stuff like that. It's not 100% just music.
Yeah, it's kind of like an athlete. They can't just play all the time. Sometimes they need a rest.
Yeah,
kind of rest.
Totally.
Interesting.
We also don't want your ears flattened against your.
No, that's true.
Permanently.
That's very true.
Is that
Your cauliflower ear?
possible? Yeah, like the opposite of MMA
Yeah.
cauliflower ear. It's just complete flat
Just
ears.
sunken.
I don't know. I'm sure there's a study on it. What advice would you give to young songwriters who are just getting started?
What young songwriters do, and I think we need lots of new, songwriters. I think that's kind of, shows kind of, the health of the music that we have is just how much more music that we keep coming back to, just more compositions. We have some great old hymns and some of the contemporary. I still want to use those, but we need more music. It's just a simple thing. So that's just my plea right now to keep writing. But my advice would be, don't try and be just too clever straight off. When you're first starting to write, just keep it simple. If it's a tune, just look, it needs to be singable. That's one of the, well, I guess it depends why you're writing it, this song. But if it's going to be used for congregational singing, which most of the music we do, it's got to be singable. And when it comes to like some of these bridges that we sing, sometimes they're just very, very tricky. You can tell they're pop songs rather than congregational songs. And that's the same with some of the old hymns as well. They can be really tricky to sing. So I would suggest that, keep it simple. Chord-wise, keep it simple. Don't try and prove that you're really great and you have to show all these different chords and all these progressions. You don't need to do that. Okay. Just people need to be able to respond to the music. And that's certainly true when it comes to kind of big arrangements with brass bands and, orchestra, choral, stuff like that. Just keep it simple. Like you don't need to do this massive festival arrangement that's 10 minutes long when you're first out, because it's what you just need to do is just a nice little kind of 5-part arrangement of a simple tune and get your learn your craft that way.
Yeah.
That's what I would suggest.
Oh, that's really good. That advice could be taken outside of music very easy.
Right.
Is there a particular song or piece that you've written that has more meaning than the others? Like you kind of keep going back to?
Well, I've gone back to it so many times already in this podcast that They Should Come From the East. That was the good one. It's funny because, as I mentioned before, we're arrangers. That's what we are, as Salvation Army Brass Band composers. So really, that is one of my dad's songs. Mm-hmm. So really, the credit, for the tune certainly goes to them. The words to John Gowns. And then the idea behind that came from my good friend in the South, Nick Simmons-Smith. He said he wanted a jungle version of They Shall Come From the East. That's what he said. And it was for some big international thing they had going on there in the South. So even though that was, I guess it's kind of my number one hit, that one, it was really a tune that I used from my dad's, based on words that I didn't write, from an idea that came from Nick Simmons-Smith.
Yeah.
So it's, but that one, that's up there. I think of Victory in Jesus as well. Which is the first one that I wrote that kind of started, getting my name on the, around and stuff like that. So that's kind of significant pieces. Another one that is probably one of the only devotional ones that I've done. Again, it's a brass band piece based around Here at the Cross. And that was after a significant Sunday morning at Torrance, and Ruth Hoskin had played that tune. And I just went to it. I wrote it the next day, and that was quite a significant one for me as well.
Nice. The trouble is, because I've played 2 of those.
Right.
The trouble is with the They Shall Come From the East is when I'm a marginal musician, and so when I flip that sheet up and I look at it, I'm like, oh, it's not that bad. It's not a lot of notes. And then when you're done with it, it kills you. It's awesome. I love it, but I want someone to be doing their devotions after to catch a break. Sure.
That is one of the issues actually in with the brass bands right now. It's especially with the young composers, if we can go back to that, they're just trying to prove what they can do, how many notes they can fit on a page and all this kind of stuff. But what's the real goal of a brass band? It's just to support the worship that we have, really mainly on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Sure, we have concerts, and, that's great. That's a chance for the bands really kind of to stretch a little bit, and, because it's got to be interesting for the musicians as well. And a lot of people certainly still love going to these big concerts. I mean, people do all the time. They go and see the LA Phil and all this kind of stuff. It's not just, I'm not just talking about Salvation Army here. But when it does come to the Salvation Army, it's got to be accessible.
Yeah.
You know, and I've started kind of moving that way now. You know, I have a bunch of pieces published, you know, so I'm not one of those young guys now that still has to kind of prove themselves really. So I'm now moving kind of more just to have playable pieces.
Yeah.
Either, you know, on a Sunday, it could be in a concert, but it's got to be being able to be played by kind of a core band and stuff like that. Now, They Should Come From the East, there's probably just 2 or 3 bands in this territory that can play that. If I'd simplify that a little bit, you know, would it really change the arrangement that much? I don't know. Would more bands be able to play it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So kind of what's the goal here? And a lot of the music that gets published these days is just so challenging.
Right.
That it's just for kind of staff bands. I still love it. It's great. It's, you know, I can kind of really resonate with some of that. But I do think we need some kind of simpler kind of hymn tune arrangements and, you know, but still good musical arrangements that can be used.
Well, I think you're good at it too. I've played a lot of your stuff at music camps and stuff like that. Very clever, very fun.
Thank you.
And probably written in a matter of 20 minutes.
Oh, no,
in some
no.
cases. But I think you're right. I think if you just look at worship songs, and Chris Tomlin's made a living off making it very simple type stuff, and because you could connect with it very easily.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there like Easter eggs that you put in different things that like it's like that's yours, that's my thing, and I'm going to be very clever and just
like
put
your
that
signature kind of?
Yeah, I often put references in.
DJ Khaled.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I often try and put references in just to be, you know, kind of fun and stuff like that. It's just I guess I'm known for being quite chordy. You know, I do like, you know, just kind of experimenting with some of those chords, which I'm trying to tell young people not to do, you know, when they first start off. But I do enjoy that. I try and put fun references in as well that people might pick up on. And, you know, like when I was doing the musical for the International Congress, for the 150th, there was this thing, I'm just trying to think what it's called, the Red Zone. And it was all about the story in Paraguay about this guy who came in and stole a computer, you know, and that took away from all the youth, and they prayed, and eventually this guy came back, and you know, it's a great little story. But in there, they often reference the police. They call the police and all that kind of stuff. So I was putting lots of tunes from the police in there, mainly to see if that one wasn't in there. I'll Send an SOS was in there, and a couple of others. Just to see if people would pick up on them. Now, if I told you they're there, you'd hear them every time. But because people don't know them, they're throughout.
I think that's so awesome. I think it's fun. I remember the first time that I recognized that someone did that. Bill Himes wrote a piece, "Rolling Along," I think. And
the Michigan. Are you going to say that?
Michigan
Oh, totally.
Thing, I was like, man, that sounds like the Michigan Fight song in the end. And
well, it was written for a corps in Michigan, yeah?
Yeah.
So that was the whole thing, and then Rolling Along was the whole car deal. And
it was funny. I was like, holy smokes. Like, and I was, somewhat young bandsman. I thought, well, are you allowed to do that? And I just thought it was super cool. And from then on, I try to listen for those as many as I can.
Yeah.
I think it's cool.
No, it was good. And I try and do that as well. You know, sometimes I guess it's fun just to try and be clever, but during some of the offertories, you know, I'll add little references to people that I can see in the audience that might be for them. So when the O'Briens were leaving, then I started putting in Sound of Music, So Long Farewell and stuff. And, you know, Gillian was just in tears on that one and stuff like that. But it's nice just to add these, you know, make it personal for certain people and stuff.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's a really neat touch. What's your dream project? Like, big, like, what is something that you've always wanted to do musically? Oh, man. It might not be my big project, but the one that's on my mind right now, because we're just about to do it at Torrance, is coming Sunday, is I'm looking at ways just to merge all the different music groups that we have, not all the time, just now and again. So we have different, you know, materials out there, but I'm looking at doing it a little bit differently. So on Sunday at Torrance, we are merging everything into one 25-minute segment that's going to include the call to worship, the scripture, the offertory. It's going to have the praise team, it's going to have the band, it's going to have the songsters all together. And it's going to be roughly a 25-minute thing that everything is put together. So people who still love the brass band,
That's in there. People who love the songs, that's in there. The praise team. And we had a rehearsal last night, and it went very well. It's just it's a different sound. The brass band is great. I love it. But when you add other instruments, it's even better.
That's cool.
And it's the same with the songsters. It's great. But if you add other instruments, it's just better. And that's for me as well with the praise team. I love praise teams. I love playing them. But if you add some brass and some vocal behind, it's fabulous. So we're going to try that. And if that works, and I think it will, I would like to develop more of that so more people can use it. And the band doesn't have to be big. I've written it for 4 or 5 parts.
Right.
And even it's just 4 or 5 people playing it with a small group. So it's not for these kind of the big chords that have the big groups. It can be small groups. And it can be people who maybe they played clarinet. You know, they can come in, they can join in, or viola. We have all the music right there.
It's carried away. But.
No, I love it. I love it. You know, brass band has a great tradition because historically, again, going back to the UK, that's when it all started. It was easy to teach because everyone plays the same clef and stuff like that. Right. So when you kind of grew, you know, from cornet, then you say, you know, just go and play bass. It was okay. You played the same clef. It was easy. So, but because of that, because it's so easy to teach brass band, we've kind of moved away from some of the other instruments. But in this way, I think we can just incorporate everything. And I think I just like to try that out.
I think
it's
awesome. Absolutely awesome. We one year we had a band, and I said, "Hey, I know you have a band. This band had been together for a while, but I go, a friend of mine's coming in. She plays viola, and I want her to be in the band." And they were like, "Wait a second." And I was like, "You just got to trust me. She could play whatever you need her to play." And
that was the year I led worship.
Was that it?
I led worship that year.
You're like, that was my band.
That was dope, man.
It was
that
a lot of
cool.
hesitation, and then she came in, and you guys had already been rehearsing.
I think the scary part was violin is like, oh, don't they need music? Don't they need like all this stuff? And she was like, nah, I don't need that.
Nope. And she came in, and I remember the first time, like the band had already been rehearsing. You guys had been rehearsing, and she was late. She's from Hawaii.
Right.
And they came in, and then she just went, and you watched all of them go, okay, that's going to work.
That was great. And we have a flute player that comes to WMI often. And again, it's like, well, flute, we don't have flutes in the brass band. You know, what can you do? Well, we could put her in vocal school instead. You know, just still get to learn music and stuff, and it's a good thing. But then the praise and worship leader says, no, we'll take her. And then she played flute in the praise and worship. It was fabulous. And she came for a number of years.
That's great. That's how it should be. Kevin, thanks.
That was great.
This has been really good.
Awesome.
And it's not just music related. Obviously, the whole thing was music, but there's a lot of life lessons that could have been grabbed out of here. But thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
And as you were saying that these people were young when they mentored you, that's amazing. And then it's weird to think, like, I felt like we were like super, like those people were super old, but when 1995 working together, we were stupid and young.
I know.
And those people were like younger than we are now.
I know.
That we're mentoring. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's scary. If you're listening or have questions and maybe need some advice on anything we've talked about, please reach out to us and or reach out to Kevin directly. You can send us a message on social media at Say Network or email us at sayconnect@gmail.com. Anything we've talked about on this episode will be linked in the show notes, including Easy.
Yeah.
He's going to get in there.
Sunday service.
And don't forget to subscribe to any of the Sane Network podcasts on iTunes. And thanks for listening. Kevin, anything you want to plug that we should know about?
Well, a few things. I do this songbook devotional, and I know some people, when they hear about the songbook, go, we don't use that anymore and stuff like that. But some of those words in that songbook are really precious.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we do this this thing all throughout Thanksgiving and Christmas, that we take some of those old hymns and we break them down so people can just kind of really understand them, and then there's a performance of that song as well. I would suggest that you just listen to those. You know, don't think just because it's old, it's not it's not valuable for today, and and listen to that. You know, eventually we want to get some more some more contemporary songs in there, but copyright issues are the problem right now. But just keep listening to it, and then you'll hear some more
we'll link that
stuff as well.
The show notes.
That's great.
It's a great series, ambitious, because you did 30 in a row.
Yeah, we're doing that again.
That's when you started it.
Yeah, we started a couple of Easters ago, and we've had now are we up to like 120 of these things that we've done?
It's
and
really awesome.
Yeah, and this year we're trying something different. On the Sundays, we're actually going to be putting together kind of like a small little service as well. So the idea is that they can take these out, whoever's like visiting or whatever, going to old folks' home or, different visitations. And then people will have this 16 or 17 minute long service. It kind of incorporates everything, just little Christmas services. So
really cool.
Hopefully that might, have good appeal. Really
cool. I love Kevin's creativity because it's not limited to music. You use it all over the place. The songbook is Our Easter Egg at WII. It makes an appearance every year in some way, shape, or form. Last year, we had 3 kids use it as spoken word, and they just read straight from the thing. And it wasn't traditional spoken word. They just said it, right?
Yeah.
And I had a couple officers were like, man, did they write that stuff? I'm like, no.
I know. It's amazing stuff. Now, some of it, is using old English words and stuff like that. So if you just get through that and just really understand, which is what the whole kind of series is about. Yeah, some fabulous stuff.
Really cool. That's a good show. We good?
We're good.
All right. Bye, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
See you guys.
See ya.
Bye.